is resilient, and it has shown that it is brutal. And so we should not start thinking right away on exactly how to get back into the system. We must be prepared, and we know that the system we want to put in place is going to make a better future for our children. And most of us will accept. For all of us, we went to school within that system. You just came out without, you became a liability immediately to yourself and to your families. We want an educational system that makes our kids an asset to themselves and to the community. And I think the sacrifices they are making today will be rewarded in the long run. So we should be resilient. On the next issue, elections. Now, let me say this. We have got between now and June, the last window to enforce the ghost towns until the school year comes to an end. We must find a new strategy to deal with August going beyond. And that is where we move into phase 2 of the resistance. Because we are not going to tell our kids again in August, we're having some ghost towns and stay home. And as I have explained, there is a guy, a general who was appointed in a communication system to be a propagandist for a system in place. That general realized that he cannot spend his entire life propagating the falsehood of the system. And so the general started fighting from within. A few months later, the general was incarcerated, locked up. He came out from prison and wrote the book, Prisoner Without a Crime. This is the guy. You see, sometimes we sacrifice, sometimes we dare the system. And that's what he did. We listened to him. We listened to his voice. We knew he and Temfaku Fege became victims of a system. Who could dare come around at that moment in time? They showed us. We loved them with their bravery from within the system. So I'm telling you people, I and my comrades have a plan. I want you to become the primary investor in that plan. We will fight Cameroon block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood. And we will humble them to be able never to think about a legitimating process within our homeland where they herd people to the ballot box to legitimate an autocratic system that has never worked in the interest of our people. So when you talk about an election, it's not going to hold. And if I believe him, and if you believe him, this year is a defining moment in our struggle. And I think he's got some very interesting plan. We are talking about it. And we will keep talking about it so we can bring our forces together to make a better plan, not only for the liberation, but for post-independence reconstruction that can give us hope. I want you to think about what we are moving into. Did I tell you I flew in here by Air Ambas?
That's a good one.
Kill this guy. Absolutely. First let me say, there cannot be elections held in Southern Cameroon.
Amen.
Because Southern Cameroon is getting its interim government next month.
Yeah.
It's over. It's over. That game is over. Sure, Mr. Biya thought this was just another round of him killing as many people as he wanted to do. But this time around, we have a game. And there's no game, and there's no force more powerful than the weapon called unity, which we have managed to force thanks to Mr. Biya himself. Thanks to Mr. Biya himself being on our side. You know, the Holy Book says that when God knew he needed to destroy Pharaoh and the Egyptian army and free the people of Israel, he hardened the heart of Pharaoh. You can replace Pharaoh with beer anywhere. It flows. That's exactly what's happening right now. And one of the reasons that those elections will not hold is because we have already declared the CPDM a terrorist organization.
Amen.
We have sufficient proof that they deal in human trafficking. And we have sufficient proof that they're a money laundering outfit. They cannot organize anything in our territory. They have tried 11 February, it did not work. They have tried the 8th of March, it did not work. They have tried the return to schools, it did not work. They have tried, we reopened the courts, it did not work. Because they have lost control. Our people are not giving them any form of consent. And so, it is a last warning that we have been giving, including to a party that I once worked for a long time, sacrificed many years of my life, working pro bono for, could have died for, the SDF. They can have their last round in Parliament if that is what they want. But they will never be returned to Parliament by our people. Never. They will never. They can come home now and be heroes, or they can live forever as zeros. They will never represent our people, ever again.
Amen.
And we have said it is better to see someone in a CPDM regalia, all dressed up and owning up to what they are. It is worse to see someone in an SDF regalia pretending to be SDF when they're indeed CPDM. And we know too many of them. What they are doing to our people is completely unpardonable. The French government had a taste of that in the days when Hitler overran Paris and General de Gaulle had to flee to London. They had collaborators who lined up and did what they needed to do. But history has a way of whipping them. And history will whip these people. But in any case, with regard to election, there will be none. With regard to 20th May, there will be none in our region, in our country. With regard to our children and school, we have to remember that you don't want your children, and this has been said by the teachers, you don't want your children uneducated. I have a nephew who spent 3 years trying to pass first school leaving. And I went home and I convinced him that he was as brilliant as every other child. I had a ceremony in the Palace of the Fun of Com. It was rewarding only students who were recognized for academic excellence. But there were a number of students who had lots of difficulties, including those who had repeated first school leaving for many years, including my nephew. And we decided that this group of kids who had not given up on school were going to be taken to the palace and were going to be recognized for excellence in never giving up. And at that ceremony, we told this young nephew of mine, his name is Gregory Boh, named after my father, we said, you are as brilliant as any other child, and you just need to apply it. And this year, if you believe what I'm telling you, you will see what your results will be for both common entrance examination and for first school leaving. They called me from home and they said, Gregory passed the common entrance. And I said, wow. And then they said, there's more. He passed in list A. Wow. Okay. And Gregory passed the first school leaving. And I said, wow. And Gregory went on to a secondary school in the village. It's Ibali Kumato. That's the village, the neighborhood of Njinikom where my mother was born. It's a small neighborhood. And then I find out that Gregory, who really likes to be a mason, is in a school in Balikumato in the heart of Njinikom that's called a Setik. It's called Setik Balikumato.
GTS.
And that they teach them in French.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to wait for university to get all the, how can I call it? To get all the intoxication in French. But Gregory is getting it in Form 1. He doesn't know a word of French. So that is the level to which this has gone. And Gregory is only one example. There are mothers going to a hospital in Bamenda who must explain the disease they are suffering from to a francophone doctor. And Bia and his system, the kind of education through which they are putting us, and the system that was left over by the colonialists, was never reformed because Bia and the rest of his people were too lazy to do what needs to be done. If you have an education system that's training hundreds of thousands of people in English, what are they going to do? If you have a country to develop and you are not training agronomists, engineers, mathematicians, how are you going to develop a country with people who talk long crayon, speak a lot of grammar? You're going to have people to have to reform that education system. So on the education side, I'm glad to announce to you that a lot of people have been working on the need for us to handle homeschooling and the need for us to bridge the gap once schools resume, to get our children to kind of do 1 year in 2 or 2 years in 1 to try and catch up. But the big part of that education has got to be, we have to take our children out of a system that is not guaranteeing them education today. And we have to compare that sacrifice with the other sacrifice. Other countries have embraced violence as a way of doing that, of getting to independence. We're embracing the most formidable non-violent approach to this that any country has ever used before. And pro-democracy movements will come to Cameroon, will come to Southern Cameroon to study what we are doing right now. I'm sorry I was a bit long, but I thought I should tell a little story and help us get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Tung Foyn. This is the segment in which we start taking questions. And I know there were some people who indicated that they had questions. So if you have a question, please, this is the opportunity to stand up. We'll take questions from the audience. Ready? All right.
Let me begin by congratulating the two for giving us so much knowledge. Thank you, actually, not congratulations. Thank you for giving us so much information and so much knowledge about what is going on. The one thing that stood very clearly in my mind is not only the similarity in approach that you guys are taking, both of you, but the constant reminder that we seem to now be working in synchrony. Things seem to be so much in harmony. If I turn around and look at my fellow combatants here, there was a time here when we had this huge fear about breakups and different groups were going to different directions and there was a lot of acrimony. Just listening to you now talk tells me that there's a lot that is happening in synchrony right now. I hope that I'm right in the first place. But my question comes out of that. If we are really so much in synchrony, if what you are telling us, is so much the same, why are we still where we are right now? What are the biggest hurdles that we have right now that are preventing us from getting to the promised land?
Yes, we have been in synchrony for a long time. Sometimes the divisions in this struggle has been propagated by surrogates, the followers. There's hardly a time probably I will go on Facebook to attack Boh or Batasang or others. And I think the same. Sometimes there are differences, intractable differences in terms of policy orientation. But you have surrogates who are hitting one globe after the other. That's how you populate, the atmosphere with the notion of division. I can speak for the AGC and the SCYL that What is holding us back is funding. It's funding. You know, you cannot prosecute a campaign against a protest system by picking $100 there, $100 there. We need people who can invest now in this process to give us the possibility to take more risk, to give us the possibility to be bold in the actions that we're taking. That's why I have gone around the world and I say, I need a budget of $150,000 US. If we are provided with that, we are going to exhaust phase 2 of this campaign. So I can give him maybe the chance, so when he talks to diplomat, he talks with boldness, you know? Because if we allow the resistance on the ground to die down, it wouldn't help the diplomats. It's nothing you can show for. And as I said, it's easy to fund diplomacy because there is clarity. You can be accountable. But to fund block by block or self-defense, there is no clarity. I can't be here and I explain in details tactical operational methods, which probably will give away a lot. So I'm inviting everyone to fund self-defense. And I promise, based on what we have looked at, we will take the struggle to an irreversible position that will make it impossible for La Republique again to claim sovereignty over our homeland. So I hope he has some other issues that is holding the struggle back from his own perspective. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Cho. On the level of unity, you may have followed what happened in Nigeria at the conclave last weekend. There was a meeting of the frontline leaders. All the liberation movements were represented or had their leaders there. Only 2 of the leaders could not make it. Dr. Cho could not make it to Lagos, and Dr. Ebenezer Akwanga could not make it to Lagos. All the other leaders were there. And we agreed that the objective, independence, was what we all wanted. We also agreed that we needed to send a powerful message to our people, that all of us recognize that this struggle is more important and bigger than any one of us and any one of our movements. And therefore that we needed to, in the interest of our people and in the interest of this struggle, to find ways of working together and highlighting the parts that unite us. So that's what we agreed in Lagos. But I want to send a warning to everyone that we know what the colonizer will do. The colonizer will find division, will raise new factions, will find people who will disagree with the fundamental route that we are taking. And so we urge you to be aware and to be prepared. When you hear dissenting voices with respect to the common objective that we're pursuing, understand what is happening. What is happening is people are either unwittingly or have indeed signed up to work for the regime. So there will be unity and then there will be disunity at some point. But we know what the focus is. And part of the disunity has been fed by the fact that there have been too many people sitting on the fence and saying, I don't know where I belong. No, everybody should know where they belong. Everybody should be able to find one organization among the organizations that exist today that you support, in which you find all your aspirations. Otherwise, it means you need to form one organization. Then form it. Don't sit on the fence. This is your struggle. You have to take leadership and you have to take ownership. So please push that. What has been holding us up, in my opinion? It's a simple thing. We have to remember where we started. Lawyers were unhappy with what was going on in the courts, and they raised the issues from the point of view of a trade union. Teachers joined them, and raise the issues from the point of view of a trade union. The government of Cameroon decided that it was going to play games with teachers and lawyers. And teachers were interested and lawyers were interested in getting a settlement with respect to their professional group. Then a brilliant young people, I love young people, a brilliant young man named BBC Mancho said, I am not going to have any of these two groups negotiating a deal for themselves while my people languish. And he started the Coffin Revolution. And he stood at Liberty Square and said, I did not consult with the lawyers. I did not consult with the teachers. I'm doing this for my people. It is not possible that we will continue to suffer what we are suffering right now. Mancho BBC pulled in the rest of Cameroon and pulled in the rest of southern Cameroon and put our issues squarely on the table. It is beyond teachers and it is beyond lawyers. That's one of the resolutions that was taken in Lagos. The strike goes on until independence. Mr. Biya was warming up to, during holidays and then we'll see what to do. No, this is going on until independence. The United Nations need to know that they will be responsible for our kids not going to school. We did not vote Resolution 1608. The United Nations voted that resolution, granting us independence. If they did not grant us independence, then they should declare us a colony. And then they should pay, because colonization is a crime against humanity. But if they did grant us independence, then they need to make it actual. They need to materialize it. So that is, for us, absolutely important. Now, because the struggle started where it started, the government of La République took advantage and said, we'll put together these ad hoc committees and we will promise stuff that we don't have the intention to do. Just like the Constitution. So many years after, nothing has moved. And so, they are trying to take advantage of that and say we just have a trade union issue to settle. And they're blinding the rest of the international community to believe that this is only a trade union issue. That is why, in our opinion, a government is needed very quickly to take over leadership of this struggle and to articulate on behalf of the people of Southern Cameroon what these other groups can only argue in subsets. That unifying platform, thankfully, is coming, and I know that my brother Cho, Ayaba, and other groups will come together, maybe in this town, maybe in another one in the United States, maybe in Africa, depending on where it is best for all of our people to assemble. And we will hear the election of that interim prime minister, who will then form a government for our people.
Thank you. Okay, a couple of hands are going up. We'll start by taking, because we have just 3 men up here, so those who are watching us from overseas know that we have women in the audience as well. And while we're waiting for Ms. Vanyonga to come up with her question, I just wanted to say something really quickly, that it's just a matter of time and Southern Cameroon will be independent. It's a matter of time. We may be there, we may not be there. So I know now we are caught in the middle of the weeds. We're caught in the middle of the forest, and it's difficult for people to take that long view ahead. But we need to start thinking about what kind of a federal republic would an independent Southern Cameroon be. So after her question, there's a question for the audience that was sent to me via text.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Boh Herbert, and thank you, Dr. Cho. I know you have come a long way, and this is the day that I hope for, because I kept asking the organizers, when are we going to be able to connect with you all so we feel a part of the movement? Because when there is a movement, you can be so detached. And I understand the people sitting on the fence, because they are not here today to connect. So I thank you for coming and making this powerful connection that for me has become a new day. My question goes to the financial part. Given that as Cameroonians, so much of our finances are abroad now by the public government, anywhere in our struggle, do we have any way of bringing back some of that money? Because even if we become a country, they owe us so much, and we are so much in debt for things that they sign. When we become a country, how do we intend to move our monies, get the debts that were signed by them during this struggle, so we don't take over a country that is already indebted by La Republique? That's one part for me. But then for these finances that we need right now, usually we are people who don't trust each other, which may be why people are not contributing right now. What is it that you would do today to rest people assured that the monies that come in will be managed in a way that gives us the rest to know that the Cameroons is in safe hands?
So thank you very much. Very pertinent questions. Number one, do not give money to an organization and not ask them what they're doing with it, unless they're engaged in the liberation movement. Because in the liberation movement, there's too many things that they cannot tell you. You have got to trust your heart and trust your leaders. If you believe in them and you believe in what they have articulated, you have to absolutely believe that there are things that they're not going to have to tell you. I've told my spouse, a wonderful lady who had the misfortune of marrying a man who wants to go to jail or die for independence. I've told her that if I'm going to do a coup d'etat, she will either see me on TV as the new leader, or she would see my body being paraded on TV because I had been killed. She would not hear about it before. That is how it works in the liberation struggle. We don't tell even our better halves what's going on. So please, trust. Now, the second part is on the fence. I think that one of the reasons people are sitting on the fence is because they think that their $100 would not count. They think they have too little, and that too little cannot do anything. President Barack Obama showed us the magic of $10 and $20. Given over a period of time, for anything that you need to change over a period of time, you need to create a revenue stream that is sustainable. The guru that does finances at Morris is sitting in the back of the hall. He came down here because his brother was starting off a new business that I hope all of you can patronize. And he's sitting back there, and I want him to just stand so that he can be recognized. Mr. Will Brother Day is running the numbers on finance at Morris. And one of the big things he has done with us is we've built a platform where we say, give us $2, give us $1. And from the Morris platform, we have committed that we will not use our own money for our own selves, because we are a facilitator for these other groups. So all of our money is being devoted to these groups. I can announce, for instance, that last week in Nigeria, we disbursed the first $5,500 in support of SCACUF, allowing them to start off their secretariat, buy their first computers, and start off their work. But that's the kind of work that we want to do from our own point of view. We said, at the time that we were being set up, that there were already enough movements to bring us to independence. And so we don't need another group. We need organizations to support these groups that are already there. And that's why we set up ourselves the way we set up at Morris. And we also said that we cannot do this while we seek office, while we also want to be the people in charge. Someone has got to work so that we get there. And we said, if you want to be a worker in this movement, then put your hand in your pocket. If you cannot offer time. If you can offer time, think about what you can do. Because in every one of your fields, we need today to define the white paper on our policy on energy, a white paper on our policy on infrastructure development, a white paper on our policy on education. Every one of us can play their role right in the area where they're already an expert. So think about that. If we can produce that on behalf of that interim government, and they show up and they say, look, this is how we can fix education. This is how we can catch up. In fact, one Cameroonian engineer gave us what he's working on an amazing Lake Menchum over the dam that also has a lake city complete with canals running with open streets run on boats like in Venice. And he's designing it and drawing it all up. Now that's the kind of work that you do to give a big vision for where our struggle is going. So I'd say, please push for it. Now, on the point where you were mentioning that this was the day you've been waiting for, I'm happy and also not happy, in the sense that no matter how Dr. Cho and myself and others want to do this, it's going to be impossible to go door by door. He's going to do block by block, but I don't know that we can do door by door because we simply don't have the time. And so if you've heard the gospel of freedom and independence for Southern Cameroon, become an apostle and a disciple of that gospel. Good. Believe in your power to share that word and convince other people about it, because it is in you. You can do it. Please, and especially because I'm talking to a woman in response to a question raised by a woman, I beg of you, ladies, I beg of you, young people, get in this movement, take it over, because we know what will happen when you do so. So please. Then I will end with the last question, which was about federalism, what kind of government. We've mentioned it's a wish on the part of those of us at Morris, and I know that most organizations share it, that we should have a parliamentary system. We should return initially to the system that was in Boya before it was completely destroyed. Then our people can determine under a referendum what kind of government they would want going forward. But what we are looking at is the possibility for a prime minister heading the government, a lean government, not the big thing that Mr. Bia has, along with either states or counties. At this moment, we have 13 counties lined up on the flag. And those are going to be autonomous regions, self-rule, complete with their own House of Representatives and their own Congresses, with their own budget to run their own affairs. So that, we believe, will enormously help our people take charge of their full system. But that is going to be dependent on what our people do after independence. For now, we can offer whatever we think is perhaps first a return to what Boya was before then, and then do improvements on it until our people can vote in a referendum. A draft constitution is being prepared now. There are several that exist, and they're very good. But there's one that's being prepared that will help blend many of the good ideas from existing versions. And I'm hoping that when that becomes available, that becomes something that inspires people as well. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to start from the last, I think the first question you asked, the issue of liability. I think because we think there is no treaty between us and Cameroon, and that we are an occupied state, we cannot be liable to the debt they have accrued all through this period. And we have warned that they owe us a lot. If we have the muscle, we're going to take part of their own place and hold you until they pay reparation for 56 years of thuggery and extortion. So we should be asking them for reparation, and we cannot be liable for the debt they have accrued during a brutal period of annexation. So that's the bottom line that we're looking at. In terms of accountability, I think you should demand accountability, because we live in a very, very corrupt system. We've been built to be corrupt by the colonial state. And so there is the fear, and it's a genuine fear, that the individual actors have not been accountable. And I think, the push by especially women for accountability now is very important. And I think the various organizations are sitting up. And that's why, from the perspective of the AGC, we have a very strong Department of Economic and Finance that's manned by close to 7 persons, women inclusive. They lead myself, and like Dr. Okwanga, we don't have access to forms. So if there are issues to be dealt with, it's going to go through that department, and they keep a robust system of accountability. And we've also invited the donors. If you want to check our books, we'll give you access. But like other speakers have said, and like Comrade has said, there are other issues that we may not be able to tell you. You just have to trust in us. It's difficult, but look at the records of the actors, and you can invest in that at least, but still demand accountability. If we want to build a system better than the one we have now, we must begin at this particular moment to demand that the various organizations, the various actors keep their books clean, and they are able to show proof of exactly what they're doing with the resources that people are sacrificing, to foster the struggle. So I really think we are doing our best under difficult circumstances. You talked about coming here. In the past few days, I've been so sick, and I think they've wrapped my head under a blanket 3 times because I couldn't just breathe. I was in Brussels. I left Brussels for a meeting in London. I left London, I flew to Johannesburg. Johannesburg, I was in Cape Town. Cape Town back to Johannesburg, back to London, to Washington, and to Atlanta. That is extremely difficult. And I also want to let you know, the finances are so bad that sometimes you just get along, because there are certain things you can fund from donations. You have to make personal sacrifice. That's what it also entails to be a leader. And we cannot go into it, but the sacrifices are enormous. Today is my daughter's birthday, and I can only sing to her by telephone. I've left my home. It's from the 30th up till this day. And so I want our population to understand that the sacrifices that we make as individuals is enormous. Give us the benefit of the doubt, but also hold us accountable when you want. There is no need, if you doubt, to peddle a lot of tales out there. Come to us, and we're going to open our book so you can see what's going on. And based on your evidence, if you find something fishy, and you can raise it up with the population that can put pressure on the individuals or the institutions.
Thank you. As we proceed, I think it's becoming increasingly obvious that we need to raise money. Now, I know for many of you, you're concerned when you have to give more than $1,000. But anything less than $1,000, you're really not so worried. So we have, for starters, we have T-shirts. They're going for $15 a piece. You can buy 5 T-shirts for you, your grandmother in Southern Cameroon, your colleague at the office, your great-grandchildren when they will be born in Southern Cameroon. You can buy for anybody. So I just want you to know, my brothers and sisters and comrades in the struggle, that please, we expect that before we leave here today, we should be able to raise something. Now, the Southern Cameroons Forum of Atlanta does have a bank account, and I was supposed to pull that up, but for some reason I don't remember what my password is. So let me say this, we'll have that information. We're going to collect money in whatever form you have it, with the exception of cowries. If you have cash, in Southern Cameroon, our money will be called cowries or something like that. Thank you. We can't call it francs. Whatever La Republic calls its money. Bitcoins. Oh no.
1 ambas.
All right. Why Dr. Cho's out there? I know that yes, Shay, your hand was up for a question.
The good thing is that I don't have a question, I have a comment. And I think the first comment is that, Tumfon, I know Dr. Chirigo went out. I really want to say from the bottom of my heart, I know the sacrifices, even from way back in Cameroon, that you have made in this struggle. And I really want to assure you, and Doc, I think we in Atlanta need to kick it up a notch. We need to. Because what we have been waiting for, the connection we wanted to hear, I think it has been made today. And to listen to him, I also have my daughter's birthday today, and I'm not there. But to hear what he has gone through, what he's been going through, gentlemen, I think we need to step it up. Seriously. We cannot just afford to talk about this thing. And then one thing he said, which is that the leaders are not having any problems. We are the people who are creating these problems. We need to stop.
Yep.
We really need to stop.
Very right.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much, Shay. I would just add one other thing which I didn't touch with respect to the question that she had raised. On the 22nd of April, there will be 3 demonstrations in Washington, in addition to the one that's holding on the 21st. On the 22nd, we're going to the World Bank, and we're going to the IMF to tell them, stop giving any money to Cameroon in the name of Southern Cameroons. And get your accountant to run the numbers and tell you how much they have invested in our side of the country. Because we will only be liable for what has been invested on our side. The Cameroon government is I use the word that F.R.A. Ransom Kuti used to use, a thieving government like they that they've never been. And there's so many examples. Anybody who saw how much they were renovating Boya Mountain Hotel before the Africa Cup of Nations, they were doing it for about 18 million francs CFA a room.
Wow.
Renovating
What?
18 million CFA a room. Anybody who has not checked the numbers on the second bridge that's being built over the Vuri River, the price of that bridge, second bridge, 800 meters long, is exactly the price of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge.
Wow.
In dollars.
Oh my God.
Now, this is open, broad daylight, hold up, stealing, thieving. You know, it is not. I mean, if you call the people thieves, it does not qualify thief. And it's what it is. And so we will tell the World Bank. We'll tell them, especially because the World Bank is fully aware that over the last 10 years, the money that has been disbursed for Cameroon has all gone to the electoral fiefdom of a certain man called Biya. It has not been for national development. And the World Bank knows that if you want to achieve national development, you will not discuss the national development program with the Minister of Finance. You will discuss it with the parliament of the country, so that that parliament will ensure that the loan is being used across the country. But they're making deals in the back with corrupt governments, fully aware that that is what is going on, because some of the money is going back. There's Cameroon money that has been disbursed by the IMF that has ended up in Cayman Islands. Yes, 60 million at least, involving mining projects that had certain people like Achidiachu who cannot leave parliament, because, you know, if they do, they will end up in Kondengi, which is where they will end up in any case. If they don't end up there in this world, they will end up there in the world to come.
Wow.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
I know there was, I'll take one from this side. See, that's why it was better if people stood up, because now I'm getting confused. I know Mr. Ekokobe, your hand was up.
Thank you, Dr. Sam. Thank you, Tumfon and Dr. Cho. My question is on the timeline issue. you've talked about blog by blog. I've followed most of your exposés online. Just like Morris has a timeline. I want to know what you want. Do you have a timeline for the projects you're looking forward to? And are they, like Brother Thomas said, in sync with what Morris is talking about? Because I think for me that's a problem I have. If Morris has that timeline that we're looking forward to, and AGL has another timeline, is there not going to be some discrepancy there?
No. I said we are in resistance. And, but I also said we are looking at a space within which we have to change our approach. That is, you cannot in August call on our students, to stay at home without changing the platform of the resistance. And so we have phases rather than timelines. We think within certain periods, we must be either in phase 1 or phase 2. And I think at this particular moment, we have completed phase 1. And so between now going forward, we should be in phase 2. In terms of timeline, I think Boh is correct. When you move the resistance to a higher level, you need a higher authority to be able to bat for the people. And that's why he has been talking about setting up an interim government. I have not gotten the full briefing of his rationale, but we have also been thinking in the same line, and we've planned to talk to one another and look at the details, because you can't just set up a government that floats. You have to set up a government that has a plan on how to decolonize the homeland and to prosecute the resistance. And so we will discuss on that. But as far as the resistance is concerned, it's not in terms of timeline, but in terms of phases. So based on our resources, based on our capabilities and other factors which are international, which are domestic, and which are otherwise, we would move between phases. But as I have said, we are in phase 2. Totally disentangling any form of collaboration between our people, our system, with the system of occupation. So we can impose a higher cost on the occupation of our homeland.
I think with respect to the timeline, if you look even at the Morris timeline, you will see that there have been slippages. So part of it has been that when you go into this, conditions change on the ground. We were all supposed to board flights and head to Boya. We may still do it, but they've got to let you in first.
Exactly.
The only thing at this stage that Mr. Bia knows for sure is that there are too many of us willing to die to make this happen. And he cannot take it. Otherwise, he should feel free to welcome us and build more prisons. The second part on the timeline, which relates to the government, is that from our own understanding, when we take this to the government level, it's for a specific reason. As a movement, there are a number of things that we cannot do. As a government, there are a number of things that we should be able to do. I mentioned at the beginning, territory, people, government, equal country. So once we get a country, every country has a right to its own army, to its own police force, to its own policy on trade. And so what Mr. Bia needs to know is that when we get our government will start entering into defense treaties with other governments. Our own government will be exactly as all other governments. It will have a right to the monopoly of violence. Our government will have a right to defend our territory. Our government will have a right to protect our people. They will use the instruments that every government in the world uses to defend their people. That is something that the government does, that movements don't. Our government will have a right to go and negotiate with other governments. Movements don't do that. Our government will have a right to apply to join the Commonwealth. and to ask that Cameroon be dismissed from the Commonwealth for joining under false pretext and for doing everything to destroy Commonwealth values. Our government will have a right to apply to join ECOWAS and to be part of the ECOMOG force. And if Mr. Biya likes the ECOMOG, he can ask the former dictator of the Gambia how it feels to be driven out of presidential palace. Our government will have a right to ask to be seated at the United Nations and at the AU and elsewhere around the world. Our movements together, even together under SCACUF, cannot do that. And so we are getting into another phase in May that Mr. Biya has always thought was not coming. But this time around, it is coming, and it is coming with sufficient legitimacy and sufficient support from our people for the international community to follow. The last thing I would say is that the international community is asking themselves, are these people truly committed? If you go to a dive and the bereaved are not crying, and you start crying, there's a problem. The UN is waiting for us to cry seriously at our own dive. And we are behaving like it is going to be them crying for us. No. This has got to be our cry. And that is why there are some amazing people here in Atlanta. Frankly, when they say you've been back and all of that, when people drive from here to New York to attend a rally and drive back home, that is commitment. The only thing we need to recognize is that there's even more commitment in sweat and blood by people at home. And on their behalf, and because they cannot do what we must do now, we need all of us to do what Kwame Nkrumah did for Ghana from out of this country. Working in the same position as ourselves, take full advantage of freedom in this country to make sure that you can bring that freedom to your people.
I took down some names, so we got 3. And we have up until 7 p.m. So after the 3 people are done, I'll pass around and take some more names on the list. And I'll change the order of the names. I know number 1 was supposed to be somebody else, but this is not La Republic changing the results of the elections. Ms. Assunta, your turn.
Yeah. Hello, Dr. Cho and Boh. We really do appreciate you guys for the leadership role you guys have, taken as far as this movement is concerned. And we wish you speedy recovery. My concern is SCACUF. I hope you guys have that direct contact with them. What is the problem? Why can't they open another bank account or money transfer process? No, Europe and even Canada, because there are a whole lot of people who are trying to contribute for that lawsuit cost, and it took them over 5 weeks to raise $35,000. I have people in different forums who are ready to contribute weekly, but they do not have means to contribute because Bank of America is not where they are. I mean, they need PayPal or something else created, to help facilitate money transfer. I don't know if you're aware of. Do you guys know there's a problem with money transfer?
Yeah, heard of it.
Yeah. I mean, a whole lot on all these other forums. People have been complaining.
Thank you very much. I am a spokesperson also for SCACUF. And I would say that what has happened in the initial phase of setting up those bank accounts and collecting money has been that there was no agreement across the board. There was a launch, and not all the leaders were looking in the same direction. There will be, in the coming days and weeks, a little bit more clarity with respect to what will be done, how the process of the lawsuit itself will go forward. There will be a delegation going to visit with the law firm to take a look at the retainer agreement and determine the process of finalizing that retainer and paying in the money to the law firm. and also prioritizing what expenses will precede which ones. So it is great to know that people want to contribute. Please look out there for that possibility. The second part is you also need to remember that with respect to the banks, that what we had before was SCAPAC. SCAPAC was set up outside of SCACUF, kind of, and that hopefully in the process of this few weeks we will get everything back into one organization and get a better way of accounting for that. And now all the organizations are members of SCACUF, so there's going to be a need to explain a little more with all the leaders, get everybody on board and make sure that we understand how everything is working. But what you need to know right now is there will be a meeting with the law firm during which the retainer agreement will be signed. There will be more platforms open for funding to be provided. And that funding will not be only in direction of that, because SCACUF itself as a secretariat will need additional funding for other sources. We mentioned the direct television service into Cameroon. That's something else that's being started, for which funding has begun also in the course of this week. So if we stay tuned, we will know a lot of things is still in flux right now, but they should get clearer in the coming few days. But also you can write a check. You can write a check to Morris, directing it to SCACUF or directing it to AGC, and on the Morris platform, morris.org, you have all the options, so you can do that as well. And we'll pass the check on.
Okay, I mean that's maybe you guys put that online too, so that people know that, put
It
that
is
on the
online.
forums.
It is online. Our commitment is all the funds we raise will go to the struggle, will go to the organizations, or will go to people back at home. We will use none of the money for ourselves.
Mr. Anthony Assam, your question is up next.
My question is from Mr. Ntumpoint, and my question is on communication. I know that you are an expert in communication, and I'm kind of excited about that because I know that communicating with our people is going to be very critical as we enter the next phase. And you just talked about the fact that there's going to be television. My question was going to be how the plan looks like for reaching out in terms of broadcast media to our people. Because when this next phase is come, it is very important that the struggle keeps in constant touch with our people, especially now that the internet has been taken away and we can't get to our people by cell phones. I don't know if that is information that you can disclose here, or it is just still planned.
We're exploring all possibilities. The point is that it's rather expensive to do any of the options that we're aiming for. The option for restoring internet is very, very expensive. It is possible, but it is very, very expensive. And we thought it's also not sustainable if we were to ask our people to fund. So what we are getting ready for is Mr. Bia knows he's going to have to turn on the internet one day, and we will be waiting. We'll be on full blast when he turns it on. Is he going to turn it back off? Maybe, but we're exploring other options, including getting on other existing networks. So getting on other radio stations that are broadcasting to Cameroon, getting on television stations broadcasting to Cameroon, and trying to reach our people, including through clandestine radio. So those are going to be all kinds of options that we'll continue to consider. But our people already on the ground, as you can see, even without information, are showing very clearly where they want to go. And that's very, very important. We know that when we get into the more intensive phase of this struggle, phase 2, as Dr. Cho was saying a moment ago, we will need to be really daily in touch with them. So we're going to have to do a little more on the sacrifice side, and our people are going to need to do a little more communication to their family members as well.
All right, so we have a total of 8 people with questions. Make your questions straight and to the point. That will help so we can get all the others in. Dr. Festus.
Yeah. I don't know whether mine is a question or just a need for clarification somehow. One thing I've discovered is that we talk to people. I mean, this is Atlanta. One of the reasons why we thought of organizing this thing here was because we had the impression that Atlanta has a high density of Southern Cameroon population, but the whole is virtually the way it is, which is an issue of concern to me. We've talked to a number of people, and there is a feeling that there's a kind of fatigue. So my question, which is not just addressed to them, but to all of us, is what are we doing to sustain faith in this struggle? What can we do to sustain it? What role can we play? How can we make ourselves more proactive? How can we help them to realize the fantastic vision that they have? So what are we doing about it? What can we do about it? So that's my question. And maybe they may have been strategizing and coming up with various ideas on how we can actually solve this problem of fatigue. Another issue that probably I have is, and I think maybe for clarification, was how involved is AGC with SCACUF? What is the relationship between AGC, SCYL, and SCACUF? And the other groups, maybe people maybe would like to know a bit about that. We are happy to see you guys together on the same table, which means that, honestly, me speaking with Tumfoin and speaking with him on at personal level, I understand that initially the perspectives were very different, but I see a certain blend at this point, a certain synergy, which is exciting to me. So, I mean, just enlighten us. Thank you.
Every resistance has what we call the revolutionary curve. There are ups and there are downs. We have been at a high, and so any dip is associated with lethargy in terms of our participation. Sometimes you get the quarreling or the infighting being blamed on probably the way we're conducting ourselves, but probably it is associated with the sophistication of the opponent. It's like playing football. Anybody who's played football here knows that when the opponent is dribbling all around you, sometimes stop the referee and let's do a count. It's like they are more than you are. But what is going on is exciting. Leadership in times of resistance works well when there is this perception of stalemate. Because a leader's job is not to run with the crowd, is to understand the revolutionary curve and anticipate policies to deal with the ups and the downs.
Good.
And I can promise you, all what we are saying here is not something we started thinking about them yesterday. We've been working, 24/7, working on different strategies. You're monitoring the nature of the regime, its responses, what is the UN saying, how do you ramp up, how do you up the ante? So the population also needs to be motivated. And I think the idea being raised in terms of the television, or I think a discussion we had with Big Brother Christopher about daily briefs, so our people can have information. It's important. And I think that I'm going to discuss that with Boh, because that is his field, so that we have a weekly brief or daily brief somehow to inform our population about what is going on. And I think that there are exciting things coming on. And it's going to be very interesting. So just be calm, do your own part, and participate. It's a good one. All right, in terms of SCACUF, I don't want to make a lot of overt statements. The AGC is discussing a lot. In the past few days, we've been having internal discussions on the outcome of Lagos. It's not in my habit to make public statements. That is, I will allow the process in the advisory council of the AGC to go through. We've prepared a resolution. I've discussed that with Brother Boh. We're going to submit about certain what I call statutory issues and clarifications that we want to make to strengthen the process. But it's left the training station and we can only make it better.
Good.
I'll start with a question on SCACUF. I was there. I got elected spokesperson. I debriefed with the steering committee of Morris 2 nights ago upon my arrival from Lagos, and we had a 4.5-hour session just talking about what had happened in Lagos. And in the end, what was determined from the point of view of Morris was that there was a need for a memorandum of understanding between Morris and SCACUF. As you know from the documents that came out of Lagos, SCACUF indicated that they had fully bought into the program that Morris had laid out. So basically they have exactly the same program as Morris has put forward. And while the general feeling was all organizations can pursue the work that they were doing, it was our argument that if we did that, we would have two fronts. And so we want to get to a point where we make the union more perfect. We want to get to a point where our people will not be listening to two voices telling them do this and do that. Because in the interest of the struggle, we really believe that that's where we should be going. But also, we also want to make sure that all of our organizations are getting ready to line up behind an interim government that they themselves put together. Because once that government appears, that government has got to become our new voice and our new unifying factor. So we're hoping that that's what we can achieve. I'm excited about what is happening within AGC. And when you mentioned a moment ago that there had been positions that suggested that organizations were in their different corners, there's always a big tendency for the colonizer to give us a name and for us to own it. The big question all of us need to ask ourselves right now in this hall is that just for attending this event, and your face is being beamed on Facebook right now, that if you travel to Cameroon, there's a very good chance that you will be arrested, that you will go to Nkondingi. And the charge will not be that you participated at this event. The charge will be that you were terrorists, that you were funding terrorism, that you were going to import arms, that you committed treasonable offenses. Now that's what they've been telling our movements. So if they tell you that, if they tell our movements committed to nothing but legal and non-violent ways of getting to restoration of independence, then why can we turn around and accuse any of our movements of doing the same? Accuse them of what Mr. Biya is accusing them. So we have resolved at our own level and at the level of SCACUF over the weekend at the conclave, we said our people have a right given to them by God and given to them by international community and international law to defend themselves against abusive governments like the government of Mr. Biya, and to defend themselves by all means possible to retain their dignity. So it should be very clear that yes, we are not going to attack anyone. But if you show up in my house and you got a gun and you're going to kill me, and I have a knife and I can get to you before, I will get to you before. So please, it should be very clear. All of our movements are on the same point with respect to defense, with respect to upholding the dignity of our people, with respect to defending our territorial integrity. And Mr. Biya knows that his government is exactly in the opposite position. They're in a position of invasion, of occupation, of militarization and annexation, and they need to move out.
Thank you, Mr. Boh and Dr. know if it's a question or maybe just a concern that I have. My concern is really to you, Dr. Ayaba. You said we are getting into the second phase and that you will make the occupation very unbearable. I'm wondering, you know, when you get to that point where you make it very unbearable for the occupier, wouldn't they then turn around and look and tell the international community that here you see those terrorists, look at what they are doing? And wouldn't that turn your fight now against your own self when, you know, when the occupier then turns around and calls you a terrorist?
Exactly, they're calling us terrorists.
They've already done so. They've charged Bala with all the crimes that you can ever imagine. They've kidnapped and raped people. They've called us extremists without us fighting back. So I'm wondering what crime again these guys can levy against us. There is none. They have charged us with the highest crimes that are in the books. And I have said before that for 56 years, we have had this way of thinking. We have thought more about what the other side would say about us. We have thought about what the United Nations would think about our action. What have they thought about the actions of Mr. Beer? What have they done against the kidnapping, transportation of people from one legal jurisdiction to the other? Kangaroo trials. They tortured Akwanga. They put a stake in the urinary of F.R.A. Lawrence and he bled to death. They killed Tete Philip in Kondengi. Tanin Daniel, whatever name you want to give us. Get out of our land. It doesn't matter. The problem is we are all here sitting thinking that you want to get to Boya. Make it a better place for some other people to inhabit. And we must stop thinking, having the mindset of the international system. They don't care. They don't give a damn about our existence. They've never done so. They sold us into slavery. And we are all the time being worried about what the thirds would say about our resistance or about when I have a knife and an intruder comes with a gun and I fight back. I shouldn't be worried about what the next person would say. I should protect my family. And by our actions for 55 years, we've never hurt them. We've never done anything extraordinary to show our disdain to the system. And I'm inviting everyone to think again. Think about the pain, the anguish, the yearning in the eyes of mothers and fathers unsure about where their kids are. Think about the dilapidated system within which we have lived for our entire existence. Think about the children who are not going to school, who are asking nagging questions about tomorrow. Just think about our land, the future you want to build for our kids. Don't think about the United Nations. They don't care about you. Cameroon is an invader. They've given Bala all the names that they want. They gave Akwanga all the names that they wanted. The Nomvis and the others have been in the Bamenda prison for 2.5 years. Oben Maxwell is sitting in Boya for 3.5 years for reading a book by Che Guevara. They don't care. And if you stop thinking about how they feel and start thinking about how you feel, you're on the road to some place you've never had in your entire existence. A homeland to call your own.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Cho. I think the more we discover your passion and your life story, the things that we are privileged to have you share with us here this afternoon, it makes us better people. It's all about mindset. Really appreciate you taking the time. I can't imagine anybody who has the schedule that you have and still be able to live in this space here, jet lagged or not, we don't know. So
just incredible appreciation for you.
Thanks a lot.
Boh Herbert, you know, we don't know what else to say about your ability to communicate. Like we had in our intro, they're talking about speaking truth to power, because you have nothing to fear. I mean, both of you, nothing to fear from anybody. I'm really making a statement, but at the tail end of it, I have a question. A couple of days ago, well, several days last week, everyone was concerned, at least those of us who knew that you were in transit going to Nigeria, only to get a text message from you indicating, you know, I had to spend the night in a car in Lagos because of the fear that exists for a liberation movement leader in a place that you know so well, and someone may be tracking you, you don't even know. There's a lot of sacrifice that you have gone through and have shared with us and have made us, you know, really just feel it. And those sacrifices, we just need someone to at least speak to, because I don't know that you stand there and be, you know, it's not adulation, it's just a recognition of what it takes to be a leader. You left here and you went to Lagos because you knew that around the curve, a special milestone was coming and certain things had not been addressed. And if you're not gone to Lagos, if you're not been in Nigeria, what we're about to talk about for me will not occur. We know that. We just thank you very much. Really, really do. Thank you. Yes. I want to talk about the communication, which is we have our people on Facebook and the social media that have been leading the fight on the ground. And last week, we all witnessed the separation between them and SCACUF. And I want to ask you, because, you know, there should be some redemption in this whole fight, whereby, like Tumfoin said, and even like Dr. Cho said, especially Dr. Cho, while I was in the university, this general working behind the scenes for us, and one day he was tossed in jail and came out and wrote a book about it, and the book was Prisoner Without a Crime. What I'm saying here is that the young learn from the elders and learn from the actual performance and leadership of the leaders, elders. So Mark and Ivor, I'm talking about. The redemption that should really happen. It's not about, is it a federation or is it independence? It is exactly where we're headed into the next month, which is that if you are for the emancipation, the liberation, the, you know, us coming out as a people and, you know, really grabbing our identity, these young people are not going to be any different. They will absolutely line up. And all I'm saying is that let's give them the opportunity, and it's actually being given to them right now. Yes, to redeem themselves. It's being given. It's not about what they say in attacking Tumfoin or in attacking you know, Dr. Cho or all the other leaders. It is what have you done with the opportunity that was given to you, right? So that is my point, and I'm hoping that you guys will stay the course and do what you're doing is providing results as it's changing people's narratives. You know, we are members of a lot of organizations in this room, and our life since October of last year has completely changed. You know, completely. All the other things don't matter. This is the one thing that matters. Yeah. Sure. So, and bear with us. Our numbers don't show it, but it takes each one of us amplifying what we've learned here tonight to make sure that people see what we've been talking about. So truly thank you. The last point is, again, about redemption or whatever. A couple of weeks ago, both of you stood up against SCACUF, or at least not really against, but like, I'm not going to do that stuff. I'm not going to. I know Dr. Cho came out clearly. AGC is not going to work with that, outfit. And so did Morris, because Morris was like, you can't take my stuff and not even give me credit for it. Forget it. You see? And then, of course, as things always play out, you see exactly what needs to be done, where they are headed. They are not trying to create something for themselves, but the clarity that you bring by also sharing your input with them is good. Yeah. So most of this you already addressed, because I have a major question there. How did you go to bed with these guys? And then stand here and talk about them, in such lofty terms. But then, of course, if you want to address it, the issue of the interim government is going to be the key. It's going to be the key. One of you talked about us having 13 counties and the form of government and all of these types of things, especially because we have been completely stained by this concept of Northwest, Southwest. Yep. Whereas, if we have 13 counties, and in those counties, you have an assembly, plus that assembly elects its own people, who are then part of the National Assembly of Southwest, Southern Cameroon, then what is Northwest, Southwest? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's a confederation of 13 counties.
Sorry, can I just link up something with the question?
Yes.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I do understand that in a crusade like the one we are going through right now, there is an utmost need for secrecy, that some things will not be said aloud. The other side of that same coin is that in order for it to be done properly and correctly, we need to be able to maintain a modicum of respect, trust, and accountability for this new government. And so I'm looking at, we are struggling to come out of a state where all of these are lacking, and we are going into a space where we are hoping that all of these will be. We are just hearing now, some of us are just hearing now that we'll have a new government next month. We don't know the processes that you've gone through, and I don't know, I don't think that personally I'm asking you for some national election process. I don't think I'm asking for that. However, as we are going to this new government, what is it, as much as you can tell us, that we need to know about this government, that the processes that lead to you forming this government, so that we have the peace of mind to say that this government is going to be representative of us, and it's going to be accountable, it's going to work for us, it's going to do all the nice things that we expect a government to do for people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That last part of it worries me, because several weeks that the government idea was announced, and it was also several months when Morris said that that government will be known on the 21st of April. That was since December of last year. The reason is that we cannot do the same thing and expect different results. We have been in this struggle before. The Albert Mukongs, the real author of
Prisoner Without a Crime.
Prisoner Without a Crime.
Prison's Graduate.
I am author of Prison Graduate.
Yeah.
Prison Graduate.
Yeah. So they fought this fight. One of the reasons they didn't get there was because you have to do a few things differently. You have to do what a country needs, what you need to do for a territory and a people to become a country. You absolutely have to do that. But you also have to be determined to die. And all of us are determined to die doing this. And it is a different moment for both our people and our leaders to have people who are absolutely determined. It doesn't matter what amount of risk we need to take to get there. I don't care to go to jail for the rest of my life if that leads to independence. I don't care to be killed if that leads to independence. So we're at a completely different point. On the process for picking a government, the UN resolution 1541 of 15 December 1960 says in principles 7 and 8 that we can separate from La République du Cameroun if it is the expression of the will of our people. The expression of the will of your people is established only through two processes. One is a direct election in which all of your people participate to vote a government. But also, you can do that through an indirect election, where people who have already been elected by people vote for the government. So we are asking many of these people who don't want to leave Yaoundé, who don't want to leave their parliament, we're asking the chiefs on the funds, we're asking councillors who have been elected, we're asking members of the diaspora. The definition for members of the diaspora and how to pick them is still being worked out right now. But we're asking those people who represent groups of our people and are already in elected position to vote for that government. And to vote initially just for a prime minister. When that prime minister is in place, she, hopefully, they can come together with the rest of the leaders and form a government, an interim government. That is when they deal with the issues of what kind of balance we get in the government. But the idea is that is how the election is going to proceed, and we'll be inviting people to vote through that method. Obviously, you will say that they will not vote. Sure, they're free not to vote. But the vote will hold, and it's important that the vote holds. I'll just come to the point that Bobe Walang was making a moment ago, and do it in two steps. First step, with respect to Maurice disagreeing with SCACUF. Maurice essentially disagreed with the manner in which the lawsuit was being done, because we felt we were party to it. We felt that we needed to have seen the retainer agreement. It turned out that there was no retainer agreement signed yet. So the one that will be signed will be seen, will be examined, will be approved by the leaders. That's the only thing we were asking for. And it turned out that there was a miscommunication on that part. So once that is done, that should be fine. Now, the thing we need to all watch out is that there are two parts in this struggle. There's an emotional side and there's a strategic side. The emotional side basically consists of saying, if you say something that disagrees, it means you are against us achieving independence. It is emotional blackmail. We all have to remain very rational. We all have to remain strategic. And we all have to tolerate dissent. We all have to allow people to disagree with us. That includes especially the leaders. They have to allow among themselves and from our people different voices to articulate different perspectives, because that's the only way that we will go forward and we will build a tolerant society. This has got to be an exercise in self-government for all of us. If we don't do that, we will build dictatorship even before we have built a nation. And if we do that, we will be going... So if we do that, we'll be going from the fry pan to the fire. We have to determine on the basis of our resources if a lawsuit should be top priority or should be second priority. And we need to look at it not from the point of view of, we already decided we will do this. No, when conditions change, let us change. Let us move with it. And we hope that the agreement that we reach in Lagos will enable us to get there, agreeing amongst ourselves that that is top priority. If we're moving into phase 2 with the government, with a plan from the AGC and others, is priority to do the lawsuit? Maybe, maybe not. But all of our leaders need to provide input with respect to that. The last part about redemption that you mentioned is really worrying for me, because this is Easter Vigil, and knows redemption from Christ, and no one else can offer redemption. But especially because I believe that the people in question have done no harm. Mark and Ivo have served this struggle very well. These are young men of whom I could not be proud of. They have done really well. I believe that as a young journalist, their age, I was not as good as they are, and I'm proud that they can take the relay from the rest of us once we grow old and cannot do the job anymore. I really am full.
What did they do wrong?
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that they have done nothing wrong as far as I'm concerned. And I have personally written to both of them to say, please, hold your head high. Be proud of what you've done. And know that I would be extremely excited to work with you on this struggle. And I believe that you have your place in this struggle. You deserve recognition for what you have done. And I want you on my team on this winning team.
I'm sorry I have to make a change in the program. It's almost 7 o'clock. And although we might go a little bit after 7, for purposes of making sure that we can come here whenever we need to, the police chief might send me an email on Monday and say, hey, what happened? So I'd strongly suggest that we'll give to each of our speakers maybe 2 minutes for them to give their closing statements. And then afterwards, take some housekeeping stuff, and then we can stop and do this informally, because we have some time to do that informally. But we'll officially wrap this up and then take care of the financial stuff that we have. So I'll start off by giving Dr. Cho Ayaba the platform to do a closing, and then after that we'll go to Point. So my apologies to those who were not able to make their questions, but you can do that on an individual basis. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Doctor. Thanks, Boh, for the courtesy. Thanks to Atlanta for having us here tonight. And thanks to our people from Finland to Cyprus, across the globe, for still standing at this particular moment in the history of our country. And most especially to the battered people in our homeland who are battling the occupier block by block and neighborhood by neighborhood. I want to give you a solemn promise that we are going to fight Cameroon until we have our homeland. There is never going to be a time in history again when we are going to have this opportunity. And despite our frailties as human beings, despite our fallibilities as mere mortals, you have to give us a chance in this particular time in our life. Not for us, probably for the kids who have lost their parents, for all those who are in jail for our sake. And let's keep praying for all those who have lost their liberty and security for our country, for those whose blood was spilled on the streets of our country. We should make sure that they never died in vain. If that's the only thing we can give Ambazonians, if that's the only sacrifice we can make for the moment so we can leave behind a better place than we inherited, I call upon you to give that sacrifice now. There is not much I want to tell you, but I can promise you, as I have done in the past 25 years, that I, Cho Ayaba, will never surrender fighting for a better homeland for our people. And I want to thank the other leaders. We have differences, but I'm glad that we tolerating one another at this moment for the sake of our people. Do the same this Easter weekend. Will be remembered in history as the day we came to Atlanta to proclaim unity, to proclaim a roadmap for our country, and to proclaim a better country than we have ever had in our entire existence. Thank you very much.
My thanks to Doc for setting this up and for the rest of the Atlanta team. You really do us proud. Thanks for attending. My recognition to Dr. Cho Ayaba for being the fighter that he is and for the big sacrifice that he's making. I know it's a tough thing to say that your life is on the line, but it is. And all of us need to recognize that a time comes. A time comes, and that time is now for us, for our people, to disband a regime that has oppressed us. A time comes when we need to undo the chains of slavery and colonization that Republic of Cameroon has tied to Southern Cameroons. A time comes when we need to wake up the international community and let them know that they committed France to wear a mask called La République Cameroun to annex our country. A time has come for them to live up to the standards that they say they set for themselves. A time has come for them to say that they recognize that the people of Southern Cameroon do not deserve to continue living in slavery. A time has come for La République to learn that our people will not dissolve like a cube of sugar in that bowl of water that they were hoping. We will never dissolve, we will not give up, we will not let up, we will resist them to the finish. And if it means, as our people say, that they will kill every one of us, then they will. Because La République, we will have our country. And my people, freedom is coming.
All right, comrades, brothers and sisters, on behalf of the Atlanta Metropolitan State College, I'd like to thank you all for coming here. Atlanta Metropolitan State College is about 50 years old, and it prides itself as being an institution that provides high-quality, affordable education for people on the south side of Atlanta, but precisely to people anywhere in the world. I was surprised to find on this campus a significant African student population. It's a commuter campus, and you should go to their website and consider this as a place to get the offer, associate, and baccalaureate degrees. Right now, it's a balanced bachelor offering institution, which means that they offer equal numbers of bachelor level and associate degrees. And it's also an opportunity for people who want to move on or do something different in life. So consider this as a possible place for the future. Now, I should also point out that this hall was made available to us by the Division of Social Sciences where I work. So in future, if Southern Cameroonians need something like this, need space like this to do this, I can assure you that I can make that happen. Amen. As long as... And then I also would like to thank our two leaders right here, our brothers. And before I make that statement about thanking you, let me just say really quickly that ours is a grassroots movement, which means that nobody paid us to show up here. Nobody paid Mancho BBC and all the others who stood up on their own and marched in protest. It came from a place, an experience that they had lived. It came from a story that I know every one of us in this room can tell. Whether it was a nephew who was forced to study in a language they do not understand, or someone who was stopped by the police and asked to provide an ID, and they showed something that had their identification, but it did not qualify, or people who were simply arrested and locked up for a book that they were reading. We all have stories we can tell of what has happened to us. Family members who have been sick and who died. Who died because the hospitals in our areas are not only poorly staffed, under-equipped, but they are staffed by physicians, many of whom do not speak the language of our people. So ours is a grassroots movement because it comes from within. We are weeping out of pain. And mindful of that, I'd like to say to you, our brothers, that we may not be there when you sleep in a car in Lagos, or we may not have been there when you were fired from or kicked out from the University of Boya for doing what is guaranteed under the United Nations Human Rights Charter. We may not have been there when these terrible things happen. We may not know some of the torturous and most painful moments that you've gone through in life. But I want you to know that what you're doing will never be forgotten. That Southern Cameroonians will remain eternally grateful for you. And I also want you to know that today, the people of Southern Cameroon pledge their support. We will give, whether it's pennies, it's cowries, or kobos, whatever we have, we shall put it to this movement to help you all succeed. So rest assured of our support and know that wherever you go, we will be there to support you. And you can always call us, count on us. If we cannot give you $1,000, we can give you $100. And that's a commitment I know I make on behalf of everybody who's here present. So on that note, we're going to stand and sing that our famous anthem. It's known as Home Again, Again. The lyrics of that song was sung by our brothers, our fathers, when they marched and fought on behalf of the colonial masters, thinking about Africa that they lost. Now that we're here, I was going to call on Mr. Wallen to intone that song.
Home again.
Wait, 1 second.
I know our brothers have come and they've spoken.
Yeah.
But given the way we do stuff in Atlanta, last week we had a fundraiser. We're still in the process of completing the financial report, but I just want them to know that before they leave, Kamkoga, on behalf of Southern Cameroons in Atlanta, will pledge a check of $1,500.
Mark, I'm glad I introduced you at the beginning. I would have been kicking myself before. Thank you. All right, you ready? Freedom is coming. Home again, again, home again, again.
When shall I see my home? When shall I see my native land? I will never forget my home.
My home again,
home again,
again,
home again. When shall I see my home? When shall I see my native land? I will never forget my home.
My home again,
home again,
again,
home again. When shall I see my home? When shall I see my native land? I will never forget my home.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you for watching. This is Dr. Ayaba and Comrade Boh Herbert live from Atlanta, Georgia.
I know, I was going to say that.
And